So over my, is it 12 or 15 years of business, I have done a lot of reading, and there have been a few books that have really changed how I think about my business, how I do my work, just what I do so that I can do it better. And today we're going to talk about those few books. First book I want to talk about is Deep Work by Cal Newport. And this came at a crucial time for me when I was really trying to figure out how I did my work better and what the malaise was that I was feeling, because I was not loving some of what I did, and I wasn't loving how some of the things were going in my business, and I was just struggling with how things are working. And while Deep Work in many ways didn't give me new revolutionary thoughts, it succinctly said exactly what I had been feeling. And it gave me license to say no to things. It gave me a lot more license to put restrictions on my time, to just put more structure into my day, to make sure that I had large swaths of unavailable time so that I could do the good work that I needed to do. It was profound in so many ways, because it gave me license, and I was like, oh, I am thinking about this all right. I do, this is true. So I've said no to a lot more things, right? I'll actually have a video coming up all about how I put restrictions and limitations into my day, into all of my productivity practices, so that I can do more things better. And that really came starting with Deep Work. I had started it a bit, but this really said what I wanted. So Deep Work, I haven't actually read this copy. I have read it multiple times on Kindle, but I found this copy recently at my local used bookstore, I think. I had a bookstore. I clearly had a bookstore. You can find this at a clothing shop. But I found it at a store and grabbed it for my own library so I can reread it in hardback, because I want it and I'll make notes in it and write in it and stuff like that. So that's the first one, Deep Work by Cal Newport. The next book that was really meaningful to me was Profit First. I read Profit First 3 or 4 years ago. 3 or 4 years ago, when I was really struggling. My business had gone from a healthy low 6-figure solo business to a mid 5-figure business in months. So our spending habits were out of line with that. I didn't tell my wife, which is part of, that's me. I did not tell her, so she didn't know that we needed to change some of our spending habits. So it was a tough, actually 2 years. But a big change came when we started using Profit First. So Profit First gets you to basically take all your money every month, put it into one account to start, and then you divide up based on percentages into your 5 fundamental accounts. And let's see if I can remember this. It is, I should, because I do this all the time. It is your expenses. That's what you can spend on things. It's your owner's comp. There's a percentage. It's your tax account. It's your profit account. Missing 4. Let me look it up. I have a Solver solution for this that just does it for me. I just plug in the numbers and it tells me. Let me see. Taxes, pay, expenses, profit, 4 fundamental accounts, and I have an extra account. So what I did with that is, and you can see can you see that on the camera? Oh, kind of see it's a little bright. So what I do every month, that's literally the income number that I have right now, that I'm working with for the next month. And what I do is I take 15% of my cash and put it to taxes. I take 60% to go to pay. I take 20% and it goes to expenses. 3% goes to profit, and 2% is extra. And extra, oh, we have a visitor. Hi, visitor. Can you sit quietly, visitor? Do you want to introduce yourself again? Awesome. So can you sit quietly? Awesome. So I divide up my money like that every month. So the way this is limitations. I talked about this with Deep Work already. When you have a limitation on your money, I can only spend what my expenses have. If I don't have the money there, I cannot spend it. Same with pay. If 60% of your income as pay doesn't cover what you need, then you're spending too much. You're paying yourself too much out of your business. I talk to, in my coaching, I've done lots of times, talk to people and they're paying 90%, and I'm like, you literally are just paying yourself too much. So you either need to get a bigger shovel, to use Dave Ramsey's term, so you can have more money coming in, or you need to cut your pay. That was another, I didn't make more money the next month after I started this, but it immediately made it feel like there was breathing room. And we had a good final discussion about what was happening with our with our money and how we could do that. And so it was still tough year to kind of work out of that hole and revamp my business a bit. But this book alone made a huge difference in what I was going to do with my money and made us feel like we had so much more breathing room. Profit First, you need to read that one too.
Oh, yeah.
Next up is 3 books, actually. All about embracing analog tools. The first is The Revenge of Analog by David Sachs. The second is Bullet Journal Method by Ryder Carroll. And the third is another reappearance by Mr. Newport, Digital Minimalism. So I'd already been using Bullet Journal for a while when I read, again, all of them really. I've been using it for a bit, but the Bullet Journal Method specifically is really good for like just a reference on like how does someone else tackle this problem? Hey, you said you'd sit quietly. Don't wreck the book. So how you'd really tackle problems in your organization. And it's a great reference book. I continually go back to it to reference how I'm going to do my analog productivity practice. Digital Minimalism was great for giving me just a framework to detox some of the digital tools that were around so that I didn't do them. You're going to go up and find your mom now?
No.
No. Okay. Oof. So it gave me a good framework to detox of that. And analog, The Revenge of Analog showed me how much analog is useful. So you said you'd sit quietly. Okay. So why do I use a bullet journal? Biggest reason I use a bullet journal is because it defaults to no. Whereas other productivity tools, I'm going to talk about this again in the limitations video I have coming up, but OmniFocus, things, whatever you want, defaults to yes. You put something in there and then you cart it along until you have to say, oh no, I won't do this. And I think a lot of things you write down and you're like, oh, I want to do this. What you really want is you want to be a person who does that thing. You don't actually want to do it. It's not important enough. You want to take the time to do it. So the nice thing about an analog journal is you just don't take it along with you. You can't. So and all 3 of these books help me like really embrace that and not worry about any fancy and digital tool. Sometimes I don't have capture and that's fine. I just email myself something. Yeah, those 3 books, like really pivotal. If you're going to pick one, I think I would pick Bullet Journal Method. Bullet Journal Method or Digital Minimalism. Revenge of Analog is a side book to those 2. I think those 2 are the best 2 out of that. Can you hear the crying? I kicked her out. Anyway, next up, Traction. Traction is a book on marketing, and the best thing about Traction is what they call the bullseye method. I actually think a lot of the methods of marketing that they offer you are just not viable for freelancers. Right? They say, oh, hire Billboard. No, I'm not going to hire Billboard. There's a lot of things they say like that I'm not going to hire radio ads. Not going to hire radio ads. But their method for figuring out what works, right, where you pick an actionable number and you evaluate your 10 marketing ideas you come up with and you see which one affects the number best. And then when you figure that out, like the 2 or 3 that do that, then you hone down and pick the one that does the best by far. And then you dump everything into that and everything else supports it, right? So I could say, what does the best? Say blogging does the best, right? So then your social media feeds to all your blogging. Or video does the best. So your blog feeds to the video and your social media feeds to your video, stuff like that. And then, every year or 2, like when you basically are hitting your number and you're seeing your growth on whether it's revenue, users, anything. When you see that growth start to peter off, you go back through and reevaluate on using the bullseye method again with a new number, with a new metric maybe, right? Maybe it's retention once you have lots of users. And that, while I don't go back and reference this whole book a lot, because I think a lot of the marketing methods just don't work for me. They would work for a bigger company. They'd be great for a bigger company. But since they don't work for my freelance business, my just me business, I don't go back and reference it. But I continually reference the idea of the bullseye method on how that works. That was a pivotal book in just adjusting how I think about marketing. Next up is Real Artists Don't Starve by Mr. Jeff Goins. So this is, I think the title says it eloquently, Real Artists Don't Starve. I read this book just as I was starting to do more writing. I was thinking about doing more writing and taking a lot of writing jobs that were like, hey, basically exposure. Like we're a blog and if you write for us, then your name's up here and that's it. So after I read this, my next job that got offered when they said, hey, would you like to write for us? We think you'd be a great fit. And my response was, well, what's your budget for writing? And they came back with a very healthy budget and very much freedom in my writing so that I could do what I wanted and not have to worry about it and get paid very well for it. Like more than $150 an hour usually is what it worked out to, because of what I got to write, how I got to write, and everything. So that was excellent. And since then I started writing for other places like GoDaddy, which pays. They offer an exposure option as well, and I always take the pay. And a few other spots, and I always have responded like, well, what's your budget for writing? And so and out of that, I have basically not taken an unpaid writing gig. Have I taken an unpaid? I think for a friend was like, hey, Curtis, you really know this, like a freelance friend was like, hey, you really know this. Would you write something about marketing for my site or write a section for my book or something like that? And I was sure, like I get friends help me like that too. And I help the friend like that. So outside of that, someone I know personally that I have interacted with, that I could name their kids, the kids would be scared of me because I've only ever seen them like on video, but still, that's the only time I've done any free writing. Everything else has been paid since then. And that just helped me realize that like it's worth something. Anyone who tells you it's not worth something is lying to you. So charge what you're worth, stick with it, stick to your guns, because it's worth something. When by Daniel Pink. It's another one that I don't own a physical copy of, but I need to grab one. Because it's a great book. When is about the timing of events in our lives. It is. And I read this, it's just last year, I think, in 2019, I think. Maybe late 2018. But long after I had read Deep Work. And I started to put scheduling in, and I had started to, work early mornings. I had a lot of things that I had already put in place that were basically backed up in when refined. So knowing that you have like a peak time to work, and it's usually for anyone, it's early morning, whether you're a night owl and your morning starts at 10 o'clock, or whether you're like me, who often gets up at 5 a.m. and works like 4 hours and then takes the kids to school. Whatever side you sit on, when help me schedule my day better and really slot my best work into the times that it fit, that I would be the most productive. And it gave me a lot better framework for that. And it gave me a good framework for, and it frustrated me actually, because I was like, oh, look, we're starting school at the wrong time for our children. And that's annoying because they shouldn't be starting school that early because they're literally not turned on yet. Right. Or knowing that. So basically you're more likely to be a morning person until the time you're about like 10 or 12. And then you start drifting towards a night owl as into your teenage years. And then in the early 20s range, you start drifting back until almost every 50-year-old is a morning person. That's the big gist of this. But going through that book helped me schedule my time better, realize, and just commit to what I call the mullet method, right? Which is 3-4 hours of work in the morning, an hour or 2 hour break for a run or for something that's like no devices, a walk sometimes, and then just being able to be recharged when you come back. Focus in the morning, party in the afternoon, or calls in the afternoon. Scattered thought in the afternoon, hence the mullet method. So that book really helped me bring together those principles and give a name to it. And again, it wasn't as profound as Deep Work. I didn't blow my mind, but I read it and I was like, oh, that's right. So this is why I'm doing these things already. And this just backs up everything I'm doing. And it really reinforced it and made me stick to it because we talked with my wife a little bit about changing that schedule. And I just said, no, here's why I need to stick with it. And she's like, okay, cool. So that was a good book to just keep me on the path to being able to be not productive, but effective. I like the word effective better. Productive always seems to me to say more faster, and effective means the right things now to me. So yeah, to being more effective. So When by Daniel Pink, great book. I think I'm going to go down to the bookstore today and see if they have a copy. The final book I want to talk about today is The One Thing. So even as I wrote the script to this, I had been up since 2 o'clock because I had a sick kid this week. And as I wrote the script, realized, and I answered this question. I've asked myself this question ever since I read the book. It's the big question that came out of it: is what is the one thing I can do with the energy and time I have that will make the rest of my work easier or relevant? So a couple years ago, when I had sick kids all week, again, it was working on a script, finishing out a video, and literally I was like, but I have other clients, and honestly, I spent an entire week working on a video script that I was getting paid to do, and not a single person noticed or said anything. So I got that out, and I continued to make a relationship, and I did more videos for that company, and I did some other stuff for them, and we don't work together now, but it was a good, solid relationship that let me know more people who follow me now, who reference me, who we talk. So it built good relationships with other people that I think will pay off is the wrong word. I think will bear fruit for my business in the future. So I ask myself that question regularly, like on a tough day, right? A couple weeks ago when I was in the hospital overnight with a kid. I woke up and then I was like, what is the one thing I can do today to like make sure that I'm like good? I didn't even know how to phrase it. And I said, "The one thing I can do today to make sure I'm good is take a day off." So I took the rest of the day off. I like walked around downtown and got some books. And my wife's like, we need a thermometer. And I walked over to the thermometer store, the pharmacy, and went to the next pharmacy because I was looking for an old school thermometer. Didn't find one instead of a digital one because they seem to, every year they're just suddenly not even close to accurate. But like taking that day off and then coming to the end of my day and then feeling like I just feel rested. Like that was the best thing I could do for my family, for me, for everything, to make sure that I'm ready to go into, the rest of the week. So that question sticks out of there. What is the one thing I can do? And they phrase it slightly different, but if you read the book, it'll be pretty much the same thing. What is the one thing I can do with my time, with my resources, with whatever, to make sure that the rest of my work is easier or irrelevant, right? So it could be if I write this book and it does well, I won't have to take, these other type of jobs because I'll have income. So all of those types of things come into it. And it just helped me really prioritize what is the most important things for me to be doing at any given moment. So yeah, The One Thing, I think it's by Gary Keller, by Keller for sure, last name. The One Thing is a great book. It's another one I have on Kindle. I don't own a physical copy, but I should get it and reread it. So that's something I'm doing this year. I'm doing a lot of like collecting of older books that I've read on Kindle and grabbing them. That's it. That's the, 8-10 books that I have really impacted my business, have changed how I think about my life, how I think about my work, and just how I do what I do. All and for the better. I didn't tell you about a book I thought was terrible and it took me on a wrong track. So if you want to have a shorter reading list, then every book that's out there on how to impact your life, how to impact your business, that's what I would tell you to do. And I would say if you're looking for like where to start with, I think starting with Deep Work is probably a good option, or Digital Minimalism, because either of those two books will help you set a framework up so that you have more time with which you can be effective and focus on your work. The other books are great, but if you can follow one of those two, Digital Minimalism is a little bit more about actually implementing it. Deep Work is more of the theory, I think, behind it. So if you can really sit down and read one of those two books and start to implement some of the things that it says to do, you will just have more time to do more stuff. And you'll have better time, more focused time. And then you can start working the other ones. And that's it. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, give me a thumbs up. If you loved it, you can subscribe, but never hit the stupid bell because you got better things to do, like going to read or going to hang out with your kids or work or something like that. And you shouldn't be getting notifications anyways because you should be doing your work. Have a good one.